Hello. Bonjour. My name is Lyndi and I currently am teaching, living, working in France. And I've lived in France for about 4 years off and on. I've done this teaching program, TAPIF. I've done it for 2 years now, and yeah, I just thought if anybody's like interested in teaching in France, or you've already been accepted and you're like, what should I expect and all that, or you're just curious, I thought I'd give you some insight. So here we go. So the program itself, there are a couple of requirements. You have to be a native English speaker. You have to be between the age of 20 and 35 years old and have a minimum B1 level in French. But trust me, if you know more, it is so useful. Not only like in the program, but just like working and living in France, like it's very, very helpful. So if you can like advance your French before coming, I recommend it. So you have your choice. You'll choose between 3 academies, or like regions of where you would want to be placed and work. But just note that like they try to place you in that, but like my first year I wasn't placed in the academy I chose, and it worked out great and I loved my experience. So like just be open-minded. Also, you choose your level of teaching. So if you want to do elementary, like primaire, or if you want to do high school, middle school level, so secondaire. And again, they try to place you in that, but be open-minded and flexible. You get about 780 euros for your salary a month. And then this is the biggest shock. You hear me right. It is a 12-hour work week. Yeah. I was like very surprised when I first heard that. You do have a lot of free time, but also factor in like lesson planning, which is not included in that 12 hours, and like commuting, because like if you're in a small town, you might only have like a bus that goes there once a day, or a train or whatever. It's like you might have an hour or two on one day, but the bus doesn't run till later, so then you just kind of have to hang out before your next bus or whatever. So there is the commuting to factor in. With that, you have free time, so you could work on lesson plans while you're at school, bring a book to read, or explore your little town, or like go to a coffee shop. Like I found how much I enjoyed my downtime and alone time and just like reflecting, and so I thought it was a great opportunity. Some people who aren't as comfortable like with that free time and stuff, like it can be a challenge, but I think it's a great opportunity. So. It can be stressful. I know this past year, like they had switched from working with the consulate to a company called VFS Global. It was fairly smooth, just have lots like extra copies of the required documents just in case. And then they mail you your visa, like in your passport, like to you before you leave. I think for me the most stressful part was getting my attestation, my like official work contract in time before the appointment. So there's that, but don't stress about it. Like it'll work out. It's all good. A very big common theme that I feel like I can't stress it enough is independence. I feel like a lot of times in the US especially, there's like a very much this hand-holding approach, but you're not in a study abroad, this is a job. So they help you in the beginning, like getting your visa and all that and placement in your school, but once you get to France, that's on you to like find your housing, get your life set up. Some luck out and like the schools might provide housing. If you're in a smaller town, like that's probably the case, and you rather don't pay rent or a very small amount, which is awesome. It might be a little bit more of a challenge. I know my first time doing the program, they didn't provide housing, and so I went on Le Bon Coin, which is like French Craigslist. but I kept running into the problem of needing a gov't, a guarantor, basically a French person to vouch for me financially. So I called like several different listings I found, and yeah, it was just kind of hard to get that as an option. I will say there was an assistant that used a company called gov't, and they are a free guarantor service. So I don't know anything about it, but there's that info for you just in case. And it worked out for them, so that might be an option. But like I said, my first time around, because they didn't have housing for at my school, they gave me a list of like landlords that past students used. So I kind of went through the list and explained like, I'm not a student, but I work at the school, and if you have housing available. And then a lot of them were taken, but then I lucked out and I got one that I went and saw the studio, loved it, ended up signing, and I had my apartment for the year. And then this past school year, at my different school, they had housing for me they reserve it for the assistants. So I have the studio and it worked out as well. Another option that might be useful is using an Airbnb. Now, I had a friend who did this, who's an assistant, and she, like, you reach out to a couple, like, just kind of in the message explaining, because you want to do it for 7 months with your contract, if they maybe offer a reduced rate, and that worked for her. So that could be an option as well. La CAF. If you have not heard of this, it is a government assistance for housing, and it is great. I will note though, like, it's a long process. Like, there's a big joke in France, like l'administration française, like the French administration. It's just like whenever somebody says it, you're like, oh boy. It's a long process, there's lots of paperwork. They might be like, oh no, we don't have that of yours, and you're like, I already gave it to you, here's another copy. Like, it's gonna be a long process, but follow up, be persistent, and like, it is so worth it. Like, let me tell you, it is worth it. First time around, I did the CAF, and you can get between 50 to a couple €100 a month depending on your situation. So depending if you were, like, for me, I was a student before and I wasn't working, so that was a big factor. There's other stuff that factor into that, and they even have like a calculator on their website, I think, that can factor that in for you. It is so worth it. First time around, I ended up getting a couple hundred or so, I think, that covered a good chunk of my rent. It was very useful. And this year I decided to just opt out of it because I was paying very minimal for my studio. So, but again, I think it's so worth it, but please, like, think of it as a bonus. Don't rely on it because it's a long process. It takes a while to get set up. Come with savings beforehand. Like, come with savings, like, have money in advance, because startup costs are expensive. Okay, I will admit, banking, that has been a bit of a tough one. I recommend you start, like, right away when you get to France, trying to get that set up, because you need your banking information in order to get your first month of salary. So try to set it up in France, like, once you get here. I know there are some assistants I've seen that, like, try to set things up before arriving, but no, that is, like, very not in the French culture. It's very much like an in-person, like, making an appointment. It is very much in their way of life, their culture. You can even ask, like, in advance what kind of paperwork you need, but essentials like your, like, birth certificate, your attestation, like your work documents, all that kind of stuff. Okay. Just to, like, prove that you exist and that you're real and you actually have a job in France. I know though, like, it is a little tricky getting a bank account without having housing, and same without having housing and, like, not having a bank account. It's, like, very much this process. But I found, like, my little loophole secret is, like, ask your school to give you, like, a letter saying that you live at the school, just proving that you have an address. So then you can get your bank account set up, and then once you actually find your housing, you can just go back and switch it over to your new address. Alright, so now for the actual teaching part, the job itself. Like, it's okay if you're not a teacher. I know some people go into this like they're really want to be a teacher, and like that's awesome. This is great experience for that. But if not, like myself, like I'm not, like I enjoy it, but it's not my career goal. It's a great opportunity to be in Europe. You can travel easily. You get to practice and use your French, be within the French culture. Like it's just, I feel like I always say so many good things, but like I've just had a great experience. There's definitely like ups and downs like anything in life, but I love this program. You learn other skills besides just teaching, and you learn about yourself as well. I think you get skills that kind of work for other career paths, like even just in managing your time and creating lessons or like working on projects, that kind of thing. I know for me, like I tutored English and French in university and in the past, so I had some experience with it, but like if you don't, it's really not a big deal. You're an assistant, so you're not there to have full lessons, but you talk with your prof. You either can collab on different projects, or you do small activities within like a couple, like within groups, or they give you free reign and just say like, you can do whatever. We're learning about this week if you want to like incorporate something like that. And again, if it's like overwhelming to you, like I don't know what I'm supposed to do, it's okay. Like there's so many resources online. Like if you just Google search like ESL activities, like elementary or high school or whatever, like you'll have lots of options. Plus there's a Facebook group for teaching lessons and all that, which is a great resource that a lot of times they might have similar themes and you can just use their PowerPoint or their lesson idea. And it ranges from rather planning like a short activity to like a full lesson. You might have like a small group or half the class. You kind of get the feel of it after a few weeks with your profs. Like you'll kind of see their teaching styles and what they want to use you for, like for pronunciation, or maybe they'll do like a role play activity like interviewing them. It just kind of depends, but again, it's not anything to stress about. Our main role is we are here for pronunciation and culture. I say like have fun with that, like take advantage of that, because I know in regular classes they have to learn like grammar and like it can get kind of boring in a sense. You come in being like the practical use of the language, so you can do like games and different activities and get them involved and like really have them practicing their English like orally. Some activities that I've done, I did stuff with like Black Mirror, just a series and stuff that they know. I tried to like relate it to their everyday. I planned outside of school. There's the internat, which is the boarding school, and I did a board game night, and that was so much fun. I'll insert a video here in a second. We did like charades at the end, and they like kept trying to guess, and it was a lot of fun. I'll show you.
J'aurais fait le jeu. Switch on the line. C'est le... Oui, c'est le line. Put the button on the line. Don't cry. Too fried. C'est quoi les fried déjà? C'est des frites. Oh, hamburger!
I also did a conversation hour, which factored into my weekly hours. It was kind of like open to whoever wanted to come, and I just set up shop in the library, and like they had this room kind of roped off to the side, and people could come in during that hour if they just wanted to practice their English, or if they had like homework questions, or I had some like middle schoolers that would come in and prepare for their tests. We would do like games. Oh, and also I recommend bring a USB So like a little USB key or flash drive. It's very, very useful. Alright, so for salary, it's about 780 euros a month. There have been some complaints about the low salary. However, you gotta think, like, you're working 12 hours a week. Like, that is, I think it's generous, and it's definitely doable to live on that salary. I had my savings at the beginning for startup costs and stuff, but like honestly, I rarely dipped into my savings. Like, it was more, I was able to live off of my salary and still be able to do some travels. They do say up front that if you're in the Paris region, like, the cost of living is it's just more expensive, so it's a little bit trickier to live off of that. So I recommend coming with more savings if you're in the Ile-de-France region, if you're in Paris, just because the cost is higher to live there. But for the other regions, I had no problem not only like surviving, but enjoying my time. And like I said before, come with savings. Honestly, like, if you don't have at least a couple thousand saved up, like, I kind of recommend not doing the program, because you're not only going to be like scraping by, but like it's going to be very hard to even just your basic needs covered. So I definitely recommend coming with some savings. You're not allowed technically to have like a second job officially, but you are able to do side hustles, some tutoring or babysitting, things like that. And I recommend that. Like, it's great to have a little bit of pocket money. You can even like make a flyer and offer tutoring that way, or you can post your ad on the Bon Coin, things like that. Okay, this is probably one of the biggest perks of the program and of this job, is because you're following the school schedule. You have 8 weeks of paid vacation, which as an American, it's just like, wow, what is this wonderful gift? But yeah, so take advantage of it. You're in Europe, so it's very easy to travel. Like I mentioned, with the gov't, you can get like cheap plane tickets. There's also, if you haven't heard of BlaBlaCar, which is a ride-sharing app. It's similar to Uber, but for long distances. And it's great because you can even, like, you have your profile and you can see your driver and kind of the reviews that they received, and you message them in advance to figure out like where you're meeting them. Sometimes if they don't have like direct routes through your smaller town, you can message them to see if they're willing to like go a little bit outside to pick you up. But it's, honestly, I've used BlaBlaCar quite often in France and it's been a great experience. Sécu, which is like social security, like health insurance type stuff. As you know, like, Europe is known for having wonderful health insurance, and France fits into that category as well. I've had great experience with it. Again, it's Inspirational Pop, so like there's going to be a lot of paperwork just to get things set up. You fill out the paperwork necessary, send it in by mail, and even online you can like fill out your profile and request a gov't, which I strongly recommend. It can take some time to receive it in the mail, but you put like your photo on it and everything. For a doctor's visit, it's about 25 euros, and then you can get reimbursed for a good part of it. If you don't have the gov't, you'll ask for a form from your doctor, and you fill out the information and send it in, and then they send you like, they direct deposit like a reimbursement for your expenses into your bank account, which is pretty cool. And same with like for pharmacies, if you have any sort of prescription or anything like that, a lot of times you can get a majority of it covered with your health insurance, so no need to pay for the full price, which is awesome. Once you get the gov't, it's really great because you just show it when you go to the doctor or pharmacy or whatever it is, and you don't have to worry about filling out any forms. It just goes directly into your bank account once they reimburse you. So pretty cool. Sometimes assistants will ask the TAPIF group in the US, but their job is mainly to help you with the visa, get you placed within a school, and then once you're in France, now you're in France, you're not in the US anymore, so kind of you can reach out to your prof référent, like your main teacher. They're usually a great help. Think locally as well. Even locals that you meet, like maybe another prof in a different subject, or if you like join a gym or something like that, you might meet people that way, and they'd be a great resource for you to ask questions. Know your support system and know who to reach out to. The Facebook group for assistance is another great resource. At times it can be a little overwhelming because a lot of people have questions and all that, so just kind of use the search option and see if somebody's already asked it. If not, people are more than willing to try to help out and answer any questions you have. But I just want to stress how important mental health is. This program, it can be challenging, and if you can't handle like living alone, or maybe you're used to being surrounded by people all the time, like this will be a big change. You can definitely try to have like roommates, but that's not always a possibility. So just be comfortable with the fact that you might have a lot more alone time here, which I think it also can be a positive, but just kind of depends how you are, and you know yourself the best, so just kind of think and ask these questions to see if you're truly ready. Again, it is a big change. You're in a foreign country, maybe for the first time. You're surrounded by a foreign language, having to speak it every day. It can be overwhelming, especially at the beginning, but eventually you'll start to learn to love the differences and even appreciate each culture for what it is. Each person has like different experiences, and I can only truly speak for my experiences, but some have experienced racism here. Some have talked about having colleagues that weren't too friendly, but I will say, like, for myself, like, I am very aware of how lucky I am and being placed with like great colleagues, great students in really nice schools. I've had a great experience. I think though, like, a big factor in how you experience your time here, and kind of just like in life overall, is how you let things affect you. It's like that famous quote that 10% of what happens to you in life and then 90% is how you react. There are definitely extreme cases and shit happens, but I found like a majority of things that happen, I have the control over how I want to feel and how I want to react. So just ask yourself and be honest with yourself. Are you able to handle living alone? Can you push yourself outside your comfort zone to meet new people and really make an attempt to connect with like a different culture and reach out to people? Because if you're very timid and shy, which nothing wrong with it, you need to make sure you can push yourself, because not everybody is gonna, like, you're the new person in the town or the city. They have their routines, so they're not always gonna, oh, let me think to ask this person to hang out. It's like, it's on you to make the effort, basically. Another big key takeaway is how much you can grow and really learn your independence, I guess, in a way. Because you're in this new culture, new country, whatever it might be, maybe for the first time for you, learning to speak up and get things done, it's a true skill to have in life, and I think this program does a great job of pushing you to really experience it. It's not a study abroad, it really is a job. I think sometimes people come in with like rose-colored glasses. They're thinking like, oh, I'm in France, like it's this great experience, which it can be, but again, there's ups and downs. Not everything's gonna be perfect. It can be hard at times, like navigating a new city, culture, the Lebanese restaurant française again. But there's like this real sense of accomplishment when you are able to overcome and succeed, which I think, especially with like all the paperwork and having to really be persistent, once you achieve it, you're like, yes, I did it. Making friends is such a huge part of the experience. I think it really can make the experience, just you need to know that you need to also make the effort. So make the effort to make your experience. I know the first time I did the program, I was in a town that people were very nice, but it was a little bit harder to connect and do activities outside of school with my colleagues or things like that, and even connecting with locals. So for that town, I mainly hung out with the assistants, and it was a great experience, and I made great friends that way. This time around, I was in a smaller town and there were no other assistants, and I made friends with my colleagues, as well as I joined a local gym and did classes with that, and I became great friends with quite a few people. And this time around, I feel like I have more friends that are French and local in a sense, not so much other assistant friends, though I do have a couple. So I think getting involved is probably my biggest tip on how to make friends. If you have a hobby, or maybe there's something that like interests you but you've never tried, this is the time to try it. I have a friend in another city who joined a volleyball team, and he like joined with his colleagues, and that's a great way to like not only practice your French but really get to know people and get involved. So I definitely recommend that. A tip for making French friends: I've always found that a lot of times French people are very genuine, and I greatly appreciate my friendships I have with French people, because I feel like in the US a lot of times it's this, you are friends right away and you might like, oh, let's go grab a coffee or something, but it seems almost not genuine in a sense. It's just like, oh yeah, we're friends, but it's not as strong. Whereas in France, it takes longer to get to know people, and you might not right away go get a coffee or something, but maybe do things like in a group for a couple times, or like see them around town or something, and then eventually you slowly become friends. But then these friendships, like I found, they become like your lifelong friends. I just feel like it's a much more genuine sense of a friendship and of a connection. And if you aren't totally able to make those connections while in your town, there are other assistants who might be in your same boat and want to do activities together. So within your region, you can always do like weekend trips to go visit and explore different parts of France, or just socialize and get to know different people. Not only Americans, but there are many different language assistants for all the languages offered in school. So I hope all my tips, takeaways, different explanations on different processes in France while you're teaching here, I hope those were all helpful. If you have any other questions, I'm more than happy to help and I can answer them, hopefully. If not, I'll direct you to like resources. I tried to summarize each category, but if there's something that you're wanting to know more about, I could possibly do like a specific video on it. Just let me know. Alors j'espère que vous profitez de vos expériences en France. À bientôt. Salut. Bisous.
Vai,